Hey Megtoes, this is Vention. I am stuck, semi-crippled around my house, not enjoying my retirement tremendously today. Um, basically, I have pretty good arthritis in both of my knees, and and I believe some of the supplements I'm taking for my cancer is irritating those irritating that condition. And then I tried to do planks the other day, and the result is now instead of my right knee being screwed up, it's my left knee. My right knee has healed up, and now I'm limping around on my left knee. I'm about to pull the cane back out because it's semi-painful to walk. Not as bad as the one in the right the other day, though. But in any case, so I can't do anything. I'm totally stuck. Had a good time yesterday, fixed the lawnmower, did some mowing, and pulled out the steel combi system and did some trimming of the grapes to keep them from climbing all over the house. And did some other trimming over there. I just sort of chop it all down and then run it over with the ox, and then it mulches it down, and then goes back to the soil. So yeah, good times, but I have to be very careful to avoid the power cord for the deep freezer in the shed when I do that. So in any case, what I'd like to discuss today is why my lawnmower didn't start. And it's pretty simple once you understand it. And some of you guys may run into this problem with a mower that's been stored like over the winter or whatever. And I'm going to go ahead and make a quick diagram with my shitty drawing of the carburetor and how it works, and why it does what they call gelling up. So let's go ahead and make a start. So we've got a carburetor, right? It has two bolts that screws into the intake manifold, and then it basically has a body, and then it's got some levers sticking out of the top that control the speed and the slow speed and the fast speed. And then it's got a float bowl about so big, and then it's got a fuel inlet right here. That's where the fuel hose hooks up. And it has a screw right here, a little square, a little hex screw. And then inside, it has the threads that screw into a little orifice, like so. And the orifice has a standpipe that goes up into the airstream of the carburetor. There's the big hole, and it sticks up in like so, right? Then there's also inside here, there's a little float. It's kind of a funky looking thing. And it's got a lever. Let's put it right here. And then when the fuel level in the float bowl drops down, the float drops down and it allows fuel to come in from the fuel tank into the float bowl. And then, but the thing is, when the fuel level drops down to a certain level, the float opens up and it allows fuel to flow into the bowl, right? But the thing is, when you have the lawnmower stored for quite a while, it basically just sits there. And then during the months, or of the summer and the winter, the fuel continues to evaporate out of this standpipe and then enter the atmosphere, and it's why you can like smell in there and smell gasoline. And then constantly, many times throughout the rest of the year and through the winter, the fuel level evaporates down to the point where the valve or the float drops down, and it allows more fuel in from the fuel tank, and it keeps evaporating out of here without actually moving a lot of fuel. Just vapor comes out of here, and any solid particles which are left in the standpipe or in the, this is what they call the jet of the carburetor right there. Anything that's left in there that's semi-solid, like the varnishes and the additives for the fuel, it gradually gets more and more dense and more gooey and more like gel until the point where it is practically a solid mass. Now, in the past, I've just pulled the float bowl off, and there's like that little threaded screw. It basically has a couple of holes here. It's basically a drilling that goes through like so, both sides. And then it has a certain size metered orifice right here that allows only a certain amount of fuel to come out. And then it is basically screwed into this other orifice here. And that other orifice has a standpipe like so that goes up into the carburetor. So over the winter, you know, as the thing keeps opening repeatedly and more gas vapor just keeps evaporating out, eventually in here you just get this goo gel that sort of accumulates. And I pulled the screw out usually because usually that's where the clog is. If there's like some debris in the fuel, it sticks in here and stays and doesn't allow it to go up the orifice. And that's where the clog is. In the past, I've just pulled this plug out, blew it out with a little bit of air, stuck it back in, and good to go. It was running. This time it didn't. Maybe because we use the riding lawnmower so much that I don't use the Toro very much. So the result is it had more time and more warm weather months to accumulate that varnish. I was puzzled. I was saying, why the heck isn't this thing starting? So I went ahead and pulled the screws and pulled the whole carburetor off. And then when I pulled the screw out, I mean, there was nothing in there. And then I turned it over and I saw in here, there was all that gelled up goo. And it was a pretty strong gel. I mean, I had to dig it out. It wasn't really strong, but I mean, I had to dig it out with a screwdriver. It's about as consistent, has about the same consistency of soft table butter or maybe margarine when you pull it out of the fridge. About like margarine. So that blocked any attempt for the airstream. Basically in the carburetor, there's this big airstream shooting past, right? And for weird reasons, which I am not really familiar with, whenever you have moving air shooting past a orifice like that, moving air has a lower pressure than stable air that's not moving. So you have basically the air shoots by and it sucks the fuel up and turns it into a mist going into the carburetor or into the intake manifold. But when you had all this gel, you would need a really strong force to push that gel up the standpipe and out. So that's why I couldn't start it. So I pulled it off, dug all that out with a screwdriver, blew the standpipe out with a little bit of compressed air, stuck it all back together, and it lit off on the first pull. Those Toro mowers are really awesome. They take very little to start if you have a machine that's actually in decent shape and not full of gelled up old ass gasoline. So guys, that, if you were ever curious, that is why one of the reasons why a carburetor can gel up over storage. Now, the cool thing about my pressure washer and my wood chipper is that I have a valve right here on the fuel line, and every time that I run those things and I'm about to shut it off, I just shut the fuel source off, right? And then the fuel stops going in, then it burns up whatever's in the float bowl of the carburetor and then dies, right? So the result is you don't get that constant evaporation and gelled up fuel situation that I had with the lawnmower. Unfortunately, with the mower, I don't have a little shut-off valve. I don't even have a fuel filter here, and I don't even recall seeing a strainer for the fuel for the fuel tank when I bought it. So the result is I just have to be careful not to let any little bits of debris to fall in, or it'll clog the one side of the jet, or it'll actually get in here and clog the standpipe, and then you have to pull this thing out and blow it out with some compressed air. So guys, and of course cold weather can cause a lot of fuel gelling, like with especially with diesel fuel, but that's a whole different thing. This is why a lawnmower one of the reasons why a lawnmower might not start. First you want to pull the plug out and verify spark, make sure you got spark, and then make sure you have fuel in the fuel tank. That's first, actually. And then after that, you can start pulling the carburetor apart, because it's either fuel or it's spark. Or it's air, but you've obviously got air. So, or you've got some serious engine damage in there. So guys, that's why your mower might not start. And don't get married.